Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to today's regular City Council meeting, Tuesday, July 10, 2018. We are located at the Veterans Memorial Hall and our meeting is starting at 6 p.m. For the record, we do have a quorum. All members of council are present. For item C1, council member Heading will be teleconferencing in from Plaza Hotel. Should I read the whole address in? Okay, so at 3325 South Las Vegas Boulevard, Las Vegas, Nevada. The number there is 805-909-9785. The public will be permitted to address the council from that location. Maybe the city attorney can explain a little bit of those details. Councilmember Heading is attending a required certification for his pharmacy, and that's why he's there. And perhaps our city attorney can explain some more detail.
There's a provision in the Brown Act that allows a council member to participate by teleconference as long as the agenda includes the information that the mayor just read and that the public are permitted to be in the same location as the council member. So the council member will be in his hotel room with his door open, and there's already a notice on the door saying that meeting's going to be happening.
Okay, great. I had to do that once. I think it was in a conference in Monterey, and arranged the room there and posted the sign, and no one showed up for public comment at that location. But anyway, all right, so with that order of business out of the way, we do have public comment speaker slips in the back. I would ask that as you're filling those out, if you'd please put the item in which you're speaking to. As an example, we have public comment for items not on the agenda, and then we have public comment for items on consent, and then every business item, C1, C2, C3. And for those who can't stay for items later on the agenda, if you just want to state that and on your speaker slip, and you can come up and speak during the regular course of public comment at the very beginning of the meeting, we'll go ahead and do that. I think we got everything done there, and we have agendas in the back. With that, if we can just take a moment and start out with a moment of silence. Thanks. Thank you. Now, if you could all rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, closed session report. We have no reportable actions at this time. Okay, thank you. And then Mayor, council members' reports and announcements. Red, do you want to start us off?
Sure, thank you. I want to recognize tonight one of our special Morro Bay citizens, Barbara Spagnola, for the many things that she does to make our city a great place to live. Barbara is currently serving as chair for two of our important advisory bodies, Citizens Financial Advisory Committee and the Water Reclamation Facility Citizens Advisory Committee. And both of these committees provide important information and recommendations to the council regarding city expenditures. And Barbara brings to the committees not only a clear understanding of the issues involved, but she is a great leader bringing together comments, opinions, and recommendations. So I want to recognize and thank Barbara for what she does for Morro Bay and the people who live and work here. I attended a League of California Cities Executive Forum last week, and I'm required to report back to the council about that. The most important session for me was the California's pension status today. Marcy Frost was the keynote speaker, and she is the CEO for CalPERS. She works for a 13-member board of director and manages $350 billion in fund assets. Her top priority is to increase investment return to help bring down contributor rates. Right now, contribution rates are 13% from employees, 26% from employers, and that strikes home for us because we are the employer in this case, and 61% return from the fund. Ideally, she's working to make the fund's return 90%, and of course that will take the pressure off everybody else. The good news that she reported was that the major decisions that the board considered last year, the discount rate and the amortization rate, are set now and are unlikely to be changed for the next few years. So we will be dealing with what we have. We also received a flyer about the statewide initiative to repeal the gas tax that went into effect last November. That's going to be Proposition 6 on the November ballot. And the flyer that we got from the Coalition to Protect Local Transportation Improvements said that if the gas tax is repealed, SLO County will lose $155 million over the next 10 years in transportation funding. And the city of Morro Bay will lose $200,000 this year and then $300,000 per year for street repairs over the next forever. And the last thing I want to talk about is a little bit of Morro Bay history. I'm reading this book, Central Coast Aviators in World War II. It's written by Jim Gregory, who lives in Arroyo Grande. And one of the stories in here is about Claire Tyler. Lieutenant Claire Tyler was born in Morro Bay in 1919. He graduated from San Luis Obispo High School because there was no Morro Bay High School at the time. And he lived on Piney Way with his wife and his daughter. But on March the 6th, 1943, Lieutenant Tyler was killed in combat over the coast of France. As far as I've been able to find out, Lieutenant Tyler was the only Morro Bay native who died in combat during World War II. And in 1953, the Claire Tyler Post of the American Legion was formed here in Morro Bay, and I believe that was this very building, this Veterans Memorial Building, and at that time it was known as the Claire Tyler Post. So I would like to see some research done about the history of this building and the Claire Tyler Post, which is no longer in existence. So I'm going to turn this book over to my friend Glenn Silloway, because he is the president of the Historical Society, and it's his birthday. And Glenn doesn't have much else going on right now, so this will give him something to do. So.
Thanks, Red.
Yes, I'd like to send out some kudos to our Morro Bay Recreation Department for the absolutely fabulous 4th of July celebration on the Embarcadero. This has been the 3rd or 4th year that this has been going on, and it's just absolutely, this year was better than all years, and I just wanted to say incredible job, thank you very much, and there were so many smiles to be had from the people there. Great job. Also, I'd like to send out notes of sympathy, get well to Bill Pierce, a longtime Morro Bay City Councilman. He is sick, and he's dealing with some health issues. Talked to him the other day, and I just wanted to put him out there, knowing what he's meant to Morro Bay for a number of years. So anyway, Bill, if you're watching this, hope you're going to get better.
Thanks, Matt. Marlos?
I don't have any announcements.
Okay. Thanks for echoing the gratitude, and thanks for the 4th of July work. And I'd like to echo my thanks as well to our staff and team and everybody, all the volunteers that put that together. Yep, thanks. All right, and with that, we have a couple of other announcements. Mr.
Yes,
Collins?
Scott Collins, City Manager. Our Finance Director, Jen Calloway, wants to provide a brief presentation on our OpenGov transparency portal. Just give a status update and demonstrate how it will work once it goes live later this summer.
So Joe's going to help out here and maneuver around as soon as he gets it open over there. What we thought we'd do, there's been several questions about people's ability to kind of track costs related to the wharf project, and that's one of the reports we've been working on as a custom report for the OpenGov portal. Our plan and our hope is we have a little bit more refinement to do. We would like to have a discussion at our CFAC meeting in July on the 17th, do more of a demo there, and then have a conversation about what their recommendations would be for deploying this and getting some training out into the community on how to use it. It's fairly easy to use once you've kind of had a chance to go through it, but we'd like to offer residents a chance to kind of sit through a session and learn how to do that. So we'll have a conversation with CFAC about that in a couple weeks. This is just the wharf report, and we've uploaded data from project inception, which we are saying is March of 2013. That's when we started tracking costs specifically, through the end of 17-18, at least to date. And just to reiterate, we are still cleaning this up a little bit, but we wanted to show you where we're at, so you'll be able to see the functionality that the program's going to offer. This is kind of a high-level summary. If you can go back, Joe, to where you just were. There's a back button almost right above your cursor. There you go. This breaks down expenditures in kind of a broad band. You have the light blue is general operating expenditures, and the dark blue is personnel related expenditures by fiscal year. And Joe's showing you that you can kind of hover over those different colors and it'll give you totals. If you click on the light blue, for example, it will break down by category of expense. So the yellow, I think, is consulting services. You can see in 17-18 is kind of when we started developing more detailed project budgets on that, and we have more categories, so there's more information. And again, if you hover over that, you can see totals. When you scroll down into the grid below is when you can really do some searching. So there's columns, and I have very bad eyesight, so I'm not going to be able to read everything on there, but there's a description category, and Joe can expand that, and you can see what the description of the payment is. If you go, that'll give you, the detail as to what the payment was for. If we go over to maybe vendor information, Joe, you can easily highlight either a vendor. So he's hovering, it looks like, over the Ferguson Group. If you can just click on search, and it'll give you all the payments for the Ferguson Group during the year that you're on. If you're more interested, you can clear that out, thank you. If you're more interested in what kind of like a category of expense, for example, it's further over on your left. I think you have to scroll over more. Under account, those are kind of the categories and how we've classified expenditures. So if you expand that one a little bit more, you can see that the government relations, for example, you can do the same thing, kind of hover over that, and click on it, and it will just pull up the expenses that were categorized as government relations. So we just wanted to kind of illustrate for the council and the community where we're at with this, and also what you'll be able to do with that as we move forward in tracking project expenditures. We have this for all of our funds. You can change the view if you prefer a pie chart versus a bar graph, but we have this for all of our funds, our general fund, all of the special funds, and our internal service funds. So we'll be able to do this for anything that the community is interested in doing. We hope to be live in August, and again, we'll offer some training for anybody interested in going through that. And once we get going live, we'll welcome any feedback, and we've gotten pretty familiar with the system, so we can do a lot in-house to kind of customize reports and modify the system so it's of most value to the community and doing the searches you want, and the council and the staff as well. So thanks, Joe, for maneuvering through.
All right, thanks for that presentation. And with that, we'll conclude that for reports and announcements from staff, and we'll move on to presentations for this evening. And we have a presentation by SLO County Energy Watch Partnership on the SLO Green Challenge program. And Mr. Collins, maybe you can help us out. Who's going to be presenting? Okay, welcome. Sorry about that.
Good evening.
If you can make sure you speak into the microphone for everybody, please, so we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
Good evening. My name is Nicolette Joliker. I'm an AmeriCorps Fellow with the SLO County Energy Watch Partnership. This is my co-fellow, Maddie. We're here today to present on the SLO Green Challenge. The SLO Green Challenge is operated by us, the Civic Spark Fellows, the City of Morro Bay, the County Energy Watch Partnership, along with the cities of Arroyo Grande and the city of SLO, as well as the unincorporated county. Just to backtrack a little bit, Energy Watch is a county program that helps local government agencies and local businesses reduce their energy use cost and demand. As Civic Spark Fellows, we have been working on this Green Challenge. We also worked on the SLO Green Business Program, which will be launching later this year. And we also work on the Municipal Energy Program. In this program, we worked with the 7 cities in the county benchmarking their energy use and cost data. For the city of Morro Bay specifically, we benchmarked 73 meters and hope to have some projects come out of this meeting that will help bring more energy efficient updates to the city. We want to say thank you to the city of Morro Bay and specifically Cindy Jason for helping us on this project. The SLO Green Challenge is a community-wide web platform that helps residents reduce their GHG emissions. As I mentioned, it's available to the city of Morro Bay as well as the other jurisdictions. We're hoping to get the other remaining cities on as soon as possible. The challenge platform, is easy and it's fun to use. It helps residents find actions, collect points for those actions, and form teams. Within these teams, they can compete with other teams to collect points and see who can become the most sustainable and the most efficient and cost-effective manner. As I mentioned, it's very easy. It makes sustainability easy. It's fun as you can compete, and it's very simple as it lays out all the steps for you.
So the key motivation of this project is to empower individual climate actions through a strong community-based social engagement platform. And the best part of this program is that it is easy and fun to use. It works by completing these 3 short steps. So first, you create your profile by answering a few short questions about your lifestyle and energy use habits. You then go and take sustainable actions. There's over 60 actions on the site. Some are easier than others. Choose those that are most applicable for your household and make a game plan. You then work together with your community members and other people that are on the site to share resources and ideas. And ultimately, you share best practices so we can work to make Morro Bay and SLO County as a whole a better and greener place. So as I was saying in the last slide, the first step in the program is to create your energy baseline by creating an account. So you'll be asked a series of questions such as how large is your house, how many vehicle miles do you drive on average per month, do you recycle? And once you do this, you're given an impact score. So you see how many average metric tons of CO2e emissions your household and yourself personally do on average. So you can see in this example here, the household of 3 has a total impact of 22.6 megatons of CO2e, with their largest use coming from vehicle use. The average impact per person is 7.5, and you can see that you can compare it with other people in your city, as well as the average scores in the U.S. and in other countries across the world.
As Maddie mentioned, there are over 60 measures. This is the action homepage. You can see that there's actions as far as choosing carbon-free electricity, eating lower down the carbon chain, switching to an electric vehicle. All of these things will help make your life more sustainable. This is the dashboard of a specific action, switching to CFL or LED light bulbs. You can see on this page the metrics below the quick text. You can also see the ranking of the difficulty level of this action. You'll see that it's easy. There's a range of easy, moderate to difficult. All of these actions will give you a range of points according to the difficulty of that action. As you can see, switching to LEDs is relatively easy and cost effective.
So continuing with this action resource, you can see as you continue scrolling down the page, there is a robust list of resources, tips, and answers to frequently asked questions that make it easier for homeowners to take that action. So the Action Resources section provides localized information regarding rebates, financing, and programs that can save homeowners time and money when taking the action. So, for example, in Morro Bay, we have a lot of resources that have to do with Morro Bay Transit, as well as city rebates for water conservation projects that are all located on the site. The rest of the action page is composed of action tips and answers to the frequently asked questions. These provide further info about how the action relates to you and your home. So as we continue with the example of switching your light bulbs to LEDs or CFLs, it talks about the evolution of lighting, how to choose the right product for your home, and the difference between CFLs and LEDs. So this slide here displays your full dashboard, which is one of the central pages for your account. Use this dashboard to track your progress and work in your teams and community groups. So as you can see here, you can see your total number of points, all of the actions that you've taken or completed, all your savings, your impact reduction, and it's also where you sign up for your teams and community groups to take part.
This is the dashboard for your community page. You can see the most recent action taken by you or your neighbors. You can also see the metrics that were shown at a personal level, more at your community level. This slide is the leadership dashboard. I think this is the most fun part of the site because you get to compete with your friends and neighbors against your friends and neighbors to see who can become the most sustainable and quickly. We will have challenges that will inspire residents to form teams and collect points so that they can make Morro Bay and SLO County more sustainable. As you can see, schools and community groups, this is a very good platform for them to participate in. Specifically for children, it's a very easy way to teach them about taking steps to be more sustainable, and for all ages, it helps us have a plan and guide us, because this can be such an ambiguous topic. We don't really know where to go. But the Slow Green Challenge platform really allows us to have a plan and stick to it.
And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening to us today, and go ahead and check out the website at slowgreenchallenge.com. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And with that, before we go into our regular public comment period, we do open up our public comment with a business spot, and we'd like to invite Ferris Zoa. Ferris? Hi. Zoe, pardon me. And Ferris Zoe Design, and she's going to introduce herself to the community. Thanks, welcome.
I have a 3-minute slideshow, so I would like that to start now.
Okay, I think Jesse's on it.
Okay.
Thanks, Jesse.
By the way, I work out of a studio on Main Street. Oh, that's loud. These are projects that I've done over the years, and I used to have a shop in Cambria, but now I work just as a fee-based, and I don't sell any product. I do help clients find products, however. So this is a contemporary house I did this was in Trilogy. I don't know if you know where Trilogy is. Down south. And both of those houses were the same client. They moved to a new house at one point in time. This is another Cambria house I did, a couple with a lot of art. And another Cambria. I had a shop for about 20 years up there. And I moved to Morro Bay about 7 years ago. And this is a recent one I did in Cayucas. I do all kinds of styles, just depending on what my clients want. This is a couple who traveled a lot, and they came back from their travels and built a house and now rent it out as a vacation house. And they also live in it. And this is a Morro Bay condo I did about 2 years ago. It's over on Anchor. And that's a Folly in Cambria. Old Victorian house. And this one I did in 2004, I believe it was. Small house that became a lot bigger, mostly because of the design. And same client. And that's one of my first cottages I bought in Cambria. And this is what I do before the job is done. I do renderings for my clients to show them what it's going to look like. And that happens to be a manufactured home over in Los Osos. And we're trying to make it look like a non-manufactured home. And then I do virtual staging, which means it's not done in the house, it's done on a picture. It saves the clients a lot of money, and they can post really nice pictures. And that's my 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And you're located on 960A Main Street?
Yes, I'm not open to the public, but I work there.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. And I have some flyers and cards back there.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. And with that, we'll open up public comment. I think I've got about 13 public comment speaker slips. Are these all for general public comment or items later on in the evening? For those, I've got several. Are there people that are signed up for regular general public comment that are speaking to an item, the rate item on C1 as an example? No, this is just general public comment. Okay, first up, Fred Collins, and then Aaron Oakes. Fred Collins, then Aaron Oakes.
Mayor Irons, council, staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Fred Collins. I'm tribal chair for the Northern Chumash Tribal Council, Inc. This is the first of several hundred pages of comments that we're going to be making. Just kidding. Just kidding. But but what we want to do is get before you some comments that assure the first people that we're getting a fair shake on due diligence. So the first things that I want to bring up is the very first item in the final EIR that talks about the only potential significant and unavoidable environmental impact associated with a proposed project it would be to the cultural resources. And then later on you state there are no significant and unavoidable environmental impacts identified in the draft EIR due to construction or operation of the WRF treatment facility. In our opinion, we disagree with your findings. And the reason that we disagree is that we've never found mitigation for burials. I don't know where this opinion came up that we can mitigate burials. It's unheard of. So You know, what we've been asking the city all along is, you know, we missed the early on consultation about all of the other alternative sites, but we've been focusing on this one proposal that you put before us, and what we've been focusing on is rerouting, you know, certain sections of the pipeline around our sacred sites so that we can avoid hitting burials, because we're going to do that. We're going to hit burials with the proposal the way it is. I don't know if you look at the cost analysis of what we did, you know, what Far Western did by not moving the sewer line in Los Osos, but that was closed down for 4 months. I mean, it was a horrible situation. Unbelievably, it was horrible. And you guys need to refresh your memory about that, because we don't want to experience that here. And so what we're asking for is to look at the ability to reroute around the specific sacred sites. And again, number one, we believe that your interpretation of CEQA is in violation of CEQA. Number two is it talks about the project design cost and other considerations, which you formulate your opinion and come up to your decisions to say that there are no alternatives for this avoidance of our sacred sites.
Fred, your 100 pages are done.
Can I go on just a little bit longer?
Please conclude. We have a lot of speakers tonight, Fred.
Okay, what we're looking for is your cost per forma. We want to make sure that what you're doing and what you're making your decision on is based on good, sound decision-making processes. And you guys need to look at Cayucas. Cayucas, I'm telling you, we've got a project up there that's under budget.
Fred, thank you very much. We have a lot of people speaking
no
tonight.
Sacred sites. I just want to. I think it would prevail on you to call Rick Coons and have him have a look at what you're doing, just to assist you.
Thanks very much, Fred. Thank you. Next up, Aaron Oakes.
Good evening, members of the council and staff. My name is Aaron Oakes of Save Morro Bay, and I heartily support the previous speaker and echo my support for the Northern Chumash Tribal Council. I feel their voice is extremely important to this public process. I feel that they were wholeheartedly ignored in the draft EIR, and they completely deserve your consideration tonight. But what I wanted to talk about this evening is public participation. We hear often from our city that our council has conducted a lot of workshops, a lot of presentations, and discussed a lot of business items. But according to a viewpoint I read in the Tribune by our local environmental attorney, Cynthia Hawley, we've fallen below the standards of Brown Act. And I feel as though that we are not having proper public hearings on significant land use decisions. And Mrs. Hawley cited several instances, not just one, but several, in her viewpoint. And I believe the council should look into these issues. And I believe that they should have a refresher course on the Brown Act. This evening I reached out to a local, actually it's not a local organization, it's a statewide organization, Californians Aware. And I've heard from some of their membership just a few minutes ago that they are extremely troubled by how the city has handled a lot of these significant land use decisions, including the Morro Bay Water Reclamation Facility. And I believe that if we continue going this way, and the way we discuss and itemize and vote on these measures and not be in compliance with the Ralph M. Brown Act, you will be exposed to significant litigation and will not bode well for the city. So I urge the City Council to take a refresher course on the Brown Act before it's too late. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Ann Schnetzger, and then Larry Truesdale.
Good evening. My name is Anne-Marie Schnetzler, and I live in Morro Bay. Today, on behalf of the Morro Bay Action Team, also known as MBAT, I am addressing all of you, all people present here, as well as all the citizens of Morro Bay that are watching us, maybe on television. And I want briefly to restate first the Morro Bay Action Team statement purpose, which is as follows. It's very short. To ensure that our local government is acting in accordance with all laws, that it is legal, truthful, and guarantees a participatory democracy. Now, to accomplish this, we have, as a group, attended City Council meetings, workshops, met with City Council staffs, proponents and opponents of various issues, and learned and shared our knowledge with other citizens of Morro Bay. We have talked at City Council meetings, sent letters, memos, listened and analyzed all kinds of documents and data, ranging from ordinances to written information as provided by this body. We have now, as a group, come to the conclusion that the water reclamation project, as we know of its status at this moment in time, cannot be supported. Our group, Morro Bay Action Team, wishes to encourage all of Morro Bay citizens eligible to vote on this issue to cast a no vote for the 218 protest ballot. Previously, the reasons behind that stance have been spelled out and discussed, ranging from costs to location, to scope of the project, to process, and so on. And now, fewer words in Spanish. Amigos, vecinos y habitantes de Morro Bay, nosotros, gente quien vive en Morro Bay y también participa en el grupo Morro Bay Action Team, decimos a cada persona quien puede votar por la proposición 218 que usted debe hacerlo para protestar contra esta proposición. Muy importante, no es necesario que sean ciudadanos para votar contra 218. El resultado de un voto no será por proteger un precio asequible para el agua necesaria por todos los habitantes. Pero si ustedes no votan, entonces vamos a pagar un precio más caro, tan caro que la mayoría de los habitantes de Morro Bay no podrá permitirse de pagarlo. Por favor,
Larry Truesdale.
Vecinos, voten no. Gracias.
Thank you, Larry Truesdale. And then Erica Crawford.
Good evening, council and staff. I'm Larry Truesdale, and I'm a resident of Morro Bay. I attended the joint meeting of the CFAC and I believe it was the WRFCAC this past week. The vote to support or not support the recommendations of the Blue Ribbon Committee was intriguing, as most of the members that voted to approve said they did so because they wanted the city to become water independent, and the new WRF would afford such a possibility. Since this is physically impossible, I can only interpret their votes as masked votes for Mickey Mouse. Any government or city would discard such votes. Certainly Mr. Pannoni, with his rigid vote counting standards, would support such an outcome. Only two brave souls on the two advisory committees refused to support the Blue Ribbon Committee report. Seriously, I believe this embarrassing occurrence results from the staffing standards that have been used by the council, which I have observed over the past year, where eminently qualified candidates are passed over for novices. This does not mean that their hearts are in the wrong place or that they do not work hard, because I'm sure they do. Such faux pas, particularly when the impossibility of water independence was recently published in a local paper, requires that these committees be staffed with the very best the city has to offer, and there are many. The council desperately needs their sage advice. I hope the council standards going forward are higher for the good of the city and its citizens. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Larry. Erica Crawford.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council and City staff. My name is Erica Crawford. I'm with the 501c6 nonprofit Morro Bay Chamber of Commerce. We, just to kind of talk about our mission, is to empower business through connection, advocacy, and education. And I have 3 announcements that do just that. So I wanted to just get you informed for those. So we have on the networking and connection peer-to-peer side, we've got a membership mixer tomorrow at the Haven Realty. That's 5:30 to 7:30. That's located Morro Bay Boulevard and Main Street. And then on the more outreach and connection to leadership side, we've got, or rather the advocacy side, we have a focus group tomorrow. So we've got the 4MB program that just kicked off. We did our first business walk last week. It was a modest start, but it was a start. And we're going to do our first focus group tomorrow with the help of Scott Graham in North Morro Bay to discuss branding and wayfinding signage. We're very excited about that. That's at 8:30 a.m. for North Morro Bay at the Eagles Lodge. And then the third, I should put this up, sorry. This is a more of the connection and the education access to resource side. Pending the outcome of tonight's council decision on item C1, we have been working with the City of Morro Bay to invite commercial rate payers to the chamber on these 2 dates, next Monday and next Tuesday. No appointment necessary. Bring your most recent water bill so that city officials will be able to help businesses sort of understand what the rate impacts would be should a Prop 218 go forward. So that's it. I'm sure we'll hear more about that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Richard Sadowski.
Richard Sadowski. This Saturday, there's going to be a Rock to Pier run, and our church is hosting the food there. So I'm going to be working the barbecue. So it's not. You don't have to run. I'll feed you no matter what. And also, I just wanted to ask whoever is, I live in North Morro Bay, whoever's taken the vote no and the protest vote and not to move the sewer signs, can you just stop doing that? I'd appreciate it. Maybe put them back. Thank you.
Marla Jo Sadowski. Thanks, Richard.
Good evening, Marla Jo Sadowski, North Morro Bay, and timely presentation today by the Slow Green Challenge, and they're also affiliated with Energy Watch Partnership, which is what the municipality, the local government, would be your portal, and people in the audience can get the information for your municipal government's energy use at that portal. What I wanted to say today is I received a notice from PG&E, important message, shutting off power during high wildfire threats. And what PG&E is doing is giving us heads up for preparing for extreme weather events. And they sent these notices out to us because we are in a wildfire area. What I would like to bring up today is to say that I was very disappointed in the draft EIR analysis as far as the electricity use going into the pumps that are used, that are proposed to be used from a lift station, pumping raw sewage 3 miles uphill. and I would like to see a baseline from the city of the electric use at the current wastewater treatment plant, and then also a baseline for the projected costs of that energy usage for the South Bay Boulevard site. My concern is that without the pumps working and their use electricity, that will be in more danger. And I know that Mr. Livick has said that we have generators and things like that, but in extreme weather events, we may not be staffing them. And it could pose a danger, more danger to the community than having the plant stay where it is. Also, I'm also interested in the presentation today with the Slow Green Energy and talking to us as homeowners and people who live in our homes. And still, PG&E is talking about reducing your energy costs at your home. And they're talking about reduction of CO2 emissions. And these are all very important factors that go into extreme weather occurrences and why we need to get those down so that we can help ourselves with the extreme weather happenings. So I like at my house, I have solar panels on my my home. I don't leave all my lights on. I still conserve energy, and I'd like the city to consider that for the Wharf project.
Carolyn Brinkman. Thanks, Marla.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, City staff. My name is Carolyn Brinkman, and I'm a citizen of Morro Bay, a resident of Morro Bay.
Marilyn, can you speak into the mic closer, please? Thank you.
Let me do that. Tonight, I want to ask for clarification about a statement on the most recent water and sewer upgrade flyer that we got in our mailboxes recently, and you can see part of it on the screen up here. The flyer asks the question, why is the water reclamation facility, the Wharf project, important for Morro Bay? The third answer to that question reads, most importantly, the project will provide a new drought-resistant water supply capable of offsetting nearly 80% of the city's current water demand. My question, when do you think the city will be capable of offsetting nearly 80% of its current water demand? Even the Blue Ribbon Commission called into question being able to rely on recycled water pumped back into the aquifer for many years because of nitrate pollution and contamination. In addition, according to that report, we are committed to paying for water from the state water program, whether we use it or not, until 2038, when the contract with the state water program expires. So again, when would the city be capable of offsetting nearly 80% of its current water demand? And would the capability be there but remain only as a potential or as a capability while we continue to pay the state water program for water for the next 20 years? The statement seems wishful at best and misleading at worst, especially without the city clarifying when we would actually be able to use the recycled water to the point where we could offset 80% of our current water demand. So I think the citizens, the residents of Morro Bay, deserve an answer to that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Meredith Bates.
Good evening, council, mayor, staff. Meredith Bates from Morro Bay. I do want to thank you for all the work you've been doing and the extra meetings you've been going to, and I appreciate the workshops. For the public, I've been kind of disappointed at the turnout, but at least you're offering those workshops. Thank you. What I wanted to talk about tonight are the motions. It's really hard for many people to understand what's really going on when the motions are not read back. And sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. And I would really appreciate it if that could be a consistent part of council meetings, if when a motion is made and there's a second and discussion, that the motion could be read back. And then it's consistent with the minutes that come out, unfortunately, quite a bit later. It would be consistent with the video, and it would be very helpful. Yeah, and I'd like to see the minutes, the motions in the minutes, be really as accurate as possible, that match the video that we see later, and also the minutes that come out. Maybe I said that already. And when there's a motion made, I think it would be really helpful to know if there's any dispute or who voted nay and who voted yay. Usually you're unanimous, but I would like to see in the minutes the name of the person who voted yes and the names of the person who voted no. That would be really helpful. And I think right now you all are really under the microscope. A lot of really important decisions are coming down, and every step you take, every move you make is being observed and looked at. So reading back the motions really carefully, I think, would help all of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Meredith. Ren Strong?
Well, good to see you all again. My name is Ren Strong. What I'm about to tell you, the constituents that are behind us, is very important information. As I have spoken in front of you guys once before, California Coastal Commission, Air Pollution Control District, Mayor of San Luis Obispo County a few times, and so Bruce Gibson is very aware of that. What we've had 30 days of very clear natural clouds coming in, and today, or over last night, they decided to spray our skies again. So this is not condensation trails. These are chemical trails. This is about, if anyone wants to look up Georgia Guidestones and understand about depopulation and keeping the population under 500 million, the greenwashing of Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. This is all a ploy to keep extracting, keep the fossil fuel industry going. So I'm a water protector, I'm an air protector, I get the glyphosate Roundup off the shelves because it's poison, it's carcinogen cancer as of March 9th, 2017. That's been claimed. There's supposed to be stickers on it, which they should just be taken off the shelves, but they're not. So I'm covering a bunch of things. Just wanted to bring that we have a corporate government that are being paid off. Their rogue government does not respond to us. You guys are not responding to the people. How are you going to protect we the people? How are you going to protect the earth? People need to know about, you want to talk about the 5G towers that you have that are going up, and you didn't let us know. You just involuntarily put these things up. I'm very angry. I'm very sad by this. And I don't like to be here doing this. I don't get paid for this. But I go to Standing Rock and I'm following through with good intentions. I want to be friends with you guys. I want to be friends with everybody. But I'm the outcast because of this. And it's not fun. So look up Zero, Z-E-R-O, 5G.com. If you're watching this, stay up with what I'm saying here. Understand that there is the 93/549, 93/549. Involuntary exposure to again, depopulate the public. And if you know anything about water, plant trees. If you want rain, these hills need it. We got Fred, and we have, there's a couple people that know about this stuff, and they need to be talking about this, about planting trees, and there's a communication that happens with rain coming. So stop spraying our skies and get the 5G towers down. Those things we need to go back to fiber optic or to 2, 3, 4G, which are meter waves instead of millimeter waves that penetrate into our bodies. It is not good for us.
Thanks, Ren.
Just want to let you know that. And by the way, primarywater.org.
Thank you.
Look up
Bill Martoni.
Primarywater.org. Look it up. We won't have to have our water stored. Bless you guys. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Bill Martini, Morro Bay. On the LCP update, it's kind of coming before you here shortly. They're talking about different zonings in the Morro Bay, but my concern right now is actually the bay itself. In Morro Bay, there's probably a half a dozen, maybe more zonings in the city. There's only one zoning that are being proposed in the actual estuary or in the bay. And it actually, right now, is going to include, for lack of a better word, everything but the kitchen sink in all parts of the bay, which I think is wrong. The northern part of the bay is more for commercial, industrial. The midsection along the Embarcadero is more for tourist-oriented, recreational. From the boat launch south has always been designated for recreational boating and fishing only. Right now, they're proposing that the zoning will allow industrial as far as boats. And this, I think, has to do more with the offshore wind energy that's being proposed in the future, and I understand that. But the support system, along with commercial and other type of commercial fishing and industrial operations, is supposed to be in the northern part of the bay. So what I'm suggesting is with the LCP update, as in the past, south of the boat launch has been designated for recreational boating and fishing as far as the boating, and that north of there should be more for the heavier boating. It's closer to the entryway. There's less burden on the, it's more of the estuary. It's an ESHA area in the water. Right now, the ESHA is being proposed to be eliminated in that part of the bay, which I think probably should not happen. Back in 1970, I was tied up next to Sandal, next to where the inn is in Morro Bay. I lived on a boat. He's the person that actually ended up saving Fairbanks Point and turning it into a bird sanctuary. And that was because that area of the bay is very sensitive for the environment. There's eelgrass beds in front of the inn at Morro Bay, in front of like where we're at the cannery and the fuel dock. So I recommend that you think twice. The proposal coming forward is to eliminate the ESHA in the bay and also to allow the entire bay with one zoning. And I think the zoning needs to be split. Where the back part of the bay that's very sensitive has to be more of an ecological type area, and the front part of the bay should be more of the commercial. So that's pretty much where I'm coming from now. As it comes forward, you might think about separating the zonings from the commercial to the ecological areas.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bill. David Nelson?
Hi, David Nelson. Here for a couple of things. One thing, we just had a nice presentation on being green. What about recycling in our town? Our supermarkets are just not recycling. I throw away my cans that I pay 3 cents for because there's no place to cash them in. You know, they get to pay a small fine that, you know, they'd rather pay a fine than have the recycle. You know, back east, if you sell product, you have to take back the products that you sell. Here, all they have to do is pay a fine. And then I throw my cans into the waste, into the dump. Why? I mean, we're a city. I mean, this is costing the city money. It must be because I know everybody around me, nobody takes them to San Luis. We throw them in our recycle cans, and I know they don't recycle them. I don't know what they do with the aluminum, but, you people really should do something about this. You got to lean on the state or whatever for these laws that don't promote recycling. I mean, this is wrong. I mean, I try not to even buy stuff that has the 3 cents on it. It isn't the pennies. I would go down to Morro Bay and take my stuff to Spencer's just because I'm a green kind of guy. I have solar panels on my house. I don't use energy from the grid. So, this is a problem in Morro Bay. And I don't know if any of you have checked how much more fill is going in since they stopped recycling, but I can guarantee that I'm throwing a few pounds a week away that I rather would recycle. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, the way that this council has handled this sewer project has totally divided our city again. The last time we saw this was with the power company, and the power company used the same tactics. They came in, they made promises, they told us things that weren't true. And this is what I've seen with this council and this sewer plant that you are talking about tonight. It's just outrageous. It's just outrageous. In your report from the managers, it says in there that all kinds of alternatives and alternative sites have been looked at. Show me where you showed any alternative technology. I've asked. You sat on this power plant for a couple of years before you actually announced that this is the project. I was standing up here saying, why don't you invite people with information to fill our needs? But instead you went with $500,000 consultants that build this kind of power plant. So I, as a citizen, feel like you've stonewalled me because I'm standing up here asking something and you're not giving me any information.
Thanks,
knowing.
Betty
So
Winholtz.
This is what you're going to look at.
Thank you. Betty Winholtz.
Good evening. My name is Betty Winholtz. I have 3 topics I want to address. The first one is on the overhead. This coming Sunday, July 15th at 1 to 3 at the Inn at Morro Bay, Citizens for Affordable Living, CAL, will be doing a presentation on alternatives to what's being proposed to the city. We call it Plan B, and everyone's welcome to come. Number 2, this week, rental housing that will be on the ballot, on the state ballot, for limiting how much people can charge for rent. And I'm wanting to say that publicly if it hasn't been in the paper yet or if it hasn't been broadly broadcast, that if anyone's interested in helping me get the word out about that I would like to work with citizens to help this initiative pass where we will have control over our rental properties of residents. And the third thing I want to mention is actually in response to what someone said earlier about signs being taken in North Morro Bay. Having been through a number of campaigns, I know that when you take political signs out of yards, that's not just a local infraction, which it is, but it's also a federal infraction because it's a First Amendment right. It's a free speech amendment. So if you are caught or if people see you do that and turn you in, then you are subject to other kinds of more serious things. We all have a right to free speech. We all have a right to yard signs. And I'm hoping that what the person said earlier is that if those signs are taken, that they be put back, because if you're caught, you've committed a federal offense.
Steve Stevens.
Good evening, Council. Steve Stevens. I just wanted to
agree with the previous speakers relative to the importance of the minutes and what's been approved and what is being approved, as sometimes we can't all be at meetings, and whether it be tapes or going back to, whether it be video or going back to written documentation, it's just very, very important that everybody understand exactly what's been passed and what hasn't been passed, and which council people are accountable for those actions. And I'm also a big proponent of making sure we're in compliance with law, with whether it be Brown Act or otherwise. My other issue, this is that I think it's important for the council to respond when people have questions, when people bring up issues. This is now the fourth time I'm bringing up the issue of vetting, specifically the City of Morro Bay's vetting process. I haven't gotten a response. In 2013, the City of Antioch sued Black & Veatch, the designer of the city facility, over a water treatment system, filtration issues, performance problems, and defects because of misrepresentations and omissions of information and gross miscalculations. In their proposal, Black & Veatch did not perform any pilot study of bench tests to confirm it could process the quantity of sludge promised. The City of Antioch pursued damages for the purpose of the system, for the purchase of the system, the construction of the infrastructure, etc., etc. And that followed on the heels of Pinella County Circuit Judge ruling Black & Veatch breached its contract with Progress Energy Florida, specifically regarding, quote, a not-to-exceed clause awarding against Black & Veatch to the energy company in the amount of $36 million. And I reiterate this because we're dealing with not-to-exceed clauses relative to our guaranteed price. It just concerns me. I know that you all want to do your best, and I would appreciate an answer on that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve. Fran? I don't have a last name, just Fran. Welcome.
Hi. People I speak with are very, very concerned about what the price of water is going to be. They don't know if they can pay for it. It is just out of this world, the prices that they're going to have to be expected to pay. So they've come up with a couple of ideas. They think the city should sell some of the property they have that's just sitting vacant and use that money to help pay for the sewer. You have property there on the corner of Highway 1 and Coral and San Jacinto. That's for sale. Sell it. Lower the price, but sell it. You have that old restaurant property near the Embarcadero. It's been sitting empty for years. Sell it. Advertise it down in LA. Someone would like to buy it. That should be worth millions. That could reduce the price of the sewer. And you probably have other properties that we don't know about. Get rid of them. There's no need to hoard all this stuff. Get rid of it to help us pay for the sewer so we can afford to make the payments on the water. You know, people are really worried. How are we going to make $200 a month payments on water? You know, everything keeps going up. And Morro Bay is loaded with retired people on fixed incomes. So please consider selling your assets that are not being used anyhow and help with the price of the sewer. And then people I talk to would also like to see the recycling of the water delayed for time being. That would help reduce the price of the monthly water payments. Set that aside. That can always be done later. The reclamation, of the recycling, set that aside and just concentrate on the sewer. That would help. Yes, it's a real burden. This is going to be a real burden. The city council has wasted money in the past by giving people on a Atascadero Road, they were going to locate the sewer on a Atascadero Road, and they gave potential people there where they were going to use the property there. They give them a couple of $100,000 to reserve that property without getting a refund if it didn't go through. My God, what a waste of money. That happened 2 different times. Where do you come up with wasting $200,000 every time? So whatever genius signed on that, I can't get over that. You should.
Thank you, Fran.
All right.
Thank you.
You got to do better.
Thanks. That's all the public speaker slips that I have for public comment. And with that, I have an item for C1, speaker slips for C1, but not for public comment. During public comment? Okay, so Carol Swain and then Dr. Robert Swain. Carol Swain? Welcome, Carol.
Good evening, council and staff. My name is Carol Swain.
Can't hear you, Carol. Thanks. Thank you.
And this is my granddaughter, Stella. The volume of data and studies from and reports and input from professionals and members of the public that we have gathered in order to understand water and how to manage it is staggering. The decision that lies before us is huge and complicated and involves many projections about the future. We cannot assume that anyone has all the right answers. What we do know is that the result of our decision is momentous. Water is a vital and limited resource, and the cost is astounding. What is reassuring to me is the team of people the city has organized, each member with his or her area of expertise. The city manager has recent experience with a water project for a coastal community with similarities to ours. The public works director is a licensed professional engineer with years of tenure in Morro Bay. The project manager, project engineer, and the plant supervisor have each articulated his part in this massive undertaking with both technical expertise and with the ability to intelligently explain its components. Our city council members have availed themselves to mounds of research, reports, contingencies, obstacles, regulation, finance, balanced with hours upon hours of meetings, hearings, interviews, and debates. I have observed you, to be courteous and respectful and thoughtful in your demeanor to each other and to those you represent. What we are considering is construction of a water facility to serve us now and in the future. This enterprise will be a melding of the best that today's science and technology can deliver. It will allow us to take advantage of loans and grants to maximize our investment. We will be confident that we made the best decision with a mind for future generations. We will say that we planned for water security for our children and our children's children. We will know that we have been careful with our resources and that we acted knowing, in the words of Emmanuel Macron, that there is no planet
Thank you.
B.
Thank you, Carol. Dr. Bob Swain?
Good evening, staff, mayor, council members, and audience. I'm here to bring out the point that water is the new liquid gold. You go on the NASDAQ and look what's happening. Those big companies are buying water. Right here in Paso Robles, Palm, who's out there bought what, Justin's? Palm bought out Justin's for the water rights. They don't care about the grapes. They want the water rights. If you go to Netflix, pull up Power and Water, you'll see what's happening in our Fresno, out here in Paso Robles, and see what these big companies are buying up this water. What they do is they don't care about us. They're pumping the water out. They're taking it in storage units, and then they sell it back in bottled water 6 times what they cost to pump it out. We need to save our own water system. And to do that, we need to recycle water. And that will, it's not going to guarantee that we don't need other water, but it's going to cut down our need for state water and other water. And that's what you saw my granddaughter, and I want to have our house handed down the lines to them. I don't want it to turn into a dust bowl. I want them to have water so they can live here and enjoy it. And the presentation on green, all of us should join that. I bet you we can save $41, $50 a month. All of us that drink 5-6 cups of coffee a month or a day, Starbucks, we can put them out of business. We'll pay for the sewer system. Water, coffee's $5, $6 a cup? I see people in there lined up on the weekends. I go, are you kidding me? How can they afford this if they can't afford to use their toilet? So anyway, I'm here to say, if we look at our own lifestyles, I think we can cut down and save a little bit, ride some more bikes, cut our cars down, look at the green, see what we're doing. I bet you we can cut down and we can make that $40 and maybe put another 5 or 10 in the bank. That's all I'm saying. It's just we need to look at our own selves, see where we're at before we rash and jump into this whole fright night. And check out Netflix. It'll put the scare into you, and you'll see that we need our water. It is gold. And if the big companies back on the stock market are buying it up, you know it's important. So I hope everybody has a good night, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak, and hope we do the right thing for the city for now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Okay, that's all the speaker slips I have for public comment. I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to council. Is this one more? Consent. Consent, okay, good. All right, anything from council on public comment?
There were several that Steve Stevens, responding to the questions about Black and Veatch. I don't know if anyone has a response to that. Does anyone know about what he was referring to, or is this something we're going to have to check on?
I think we'll have to check on it and get back to the council.
Okay.
Steve, if you can submit your questions in writing for them, that would be helpful.
I submitted that a month ago upon your request.
Okay, thank you. Anybody, anything else?
The issue of the selling of vacant property, the city selling vacant property. I think the woman referred to 2 pieces of property, both of which are on the market now. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have a purchase agreement in place for the Coral property, and that property is going through the entitlement process, which is part of the purchase agreement. And we'll be going to Planning Commission actually next month.
Wow.
Okay. So coming forward, yeah. So, and then the other property, obviously council has given authorization to staff to go out. We're contracted with Stafford McCarty for the DeStasio's building property in the downtown, the parking lot adjacent and the city's parking lot below to market that for redevelopment opportunities related to visitor serving accommodations,
Okay.
restaurant, mixed use, that type of thing.
Okay, and then she also brought up the issue of $200,000. Did we pay some holding property?
When we were looking at the Rigetti site, we paid $25,000 to, as in earnest money that we forfeited when we did not move forward with the option on that property. That's the only option money that I know of that we paid.
Okay, so 25,000, not 200. Right. Okay.
Can I address the question brought up by Steve Stevens? We don't know the specifics of those particular lawsuits, but the city is strongly leveraged and will be strongly leveraged in our contract with Black and Veatch and Feelonk in the case that we face those kind of issues in the future. And the attorney might be able to speak to that in more detail, but we are looking after the community and making sure that we are strongly leveraged, so if we have those issues come up, we'll be in a good position to deal with them.
Okay. Anything more?
He said it very well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's what I caught, yeah.
All right, Red?
Scott, there was a comment about ESHA in the Bay. Are we eliminating ESHA?
So I think what the reference was to was in relationship to there's some areas that are identified in the Bay as ESHA and they're mapped. But what we've done is, because that's a mapping thing from 30 years ago, we've actually incorporated the policies related to eelgrass and protection of the bay into the general policy language in the document, so it becomes unnecessary. Whether that had a little circle around it or not, you still have to do the same biological studies and those types of things if you're proposing development in those locations. So it doesn't really mean anything. They're lines on a map, basically. There's no additional protection provided over the policy that's actually the policy language that has to do with any sort of development in or adjacent to the bay.
Okay, so what I think I hear you saying is that there is policy language that has replaced circles on the map.
Correct.
But it does the same thing.
It covers the entirety of the water, not just those areas that are circled.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there was a comment about reading back motions. Is that something we need to update council policy through a discussion, or?
I think whether there's consistency in that, I think we call out the vote almost every time. There's motions, whether they're clearly stated at the beginning. As an example, motion to approve item A5. So moved. There's no repeat of the motion. There's examples where we do go through some laborious conversations about repeating the motion. So I think we make a fair attempt at that, but I hear what people are saying.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to clarify for the record, you declare the vote every time, not just most of the time.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
And there was reference about the council falling well below Brown Act standards, I guess on more than one occasion, a reference to a newspaper article. And I think Mr. Pannoni monitors us pretty well. And I think you have answered every specific allegation of Brown Act violations. So do you want to say anything more about that?
The council has received several written comments and objections based on the Brown Act, allegedly based on the Brown Act. And you have prepared, I have assisted in preparing responses to those to explain why it is the Brown Act was not violated, even though those allegations were made. Since I've been sitting here as your city attorney, I have not seen a violation of the Brown Act occur. There was one time when I was made aware that there was documents being given to, I don't remember if it was the Planning Commission or the City Council, I think it was the Planning Commission, and those documents weren't being made available to the public. That was immediately corrected, and that doesn't happen anymore. I take very seriously my obligation to make sure that you follow the law, the Brown Act, planning laws, engineering laws, whatever laws I'm aware of and I need to be aware of, I make sure you're aware of. There are times when I have made comments that I believe an action from that you take or something that happens at this meeting, I find my obligation to tell you, I think could be a problem, and then you decide whether or not you think the problem has to be rectified or not. The thing I'm thinking about is when I brought to you the issue of this becoming more than just a council meeting, but some other kind of public forum, and you decided that you wanted to give the public the right to say things, even if they didn't have the legal right to have to do it, meaning something not on your agenda or something within your subject matter jurisdiction, and you decided to allow the public to do that anyway. So my experience with you is you go above and beyond what the Brown Act requires, and you definitely meet all of the requirements the Brown Act has. Your staff meets all of the requirements that the Public Records Act demands. Your planning staff meets all of the requirements and goes beyond the requirements of the planning laws in the state of California. If I sound I'm getting worked up, it's because my frustration level is showing, and I apologize to that, and I apologize to the public, but sometimes my Italian just comes out.
Thank you, Joe. That's all I have.
I think there was one other one I just caught. Carolyn Brinkman asked, when will the city be able to offset water?
That was the 80%
Yes.
in the flyer.
Right.
We've gotten, Eric Caceres with the program management team.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks. We've got a number of questions regarding the quote-unquote feasibility of the potable reuse. And just to clarify, there was a study done back in May of 2017 that looked at one of the critical elements for potable reuse, and that was groundwater travel time. That feasibility study identified that it was likely feasible that we were meeting the minimum of 2 months. There were 4 different scenarios that were evaluated in 2 different injection locations. All 4 of those scenarios and combination of injection locations, both during dry and wet weather conditions, identified that the minimum 2-month travel time would be met, which is the main criteria for the Division of Drinking Water when granting a permit for potable reuse. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin has to do with the treatment requirements, and again, the design build proposals that were sent out and the process that's ongoing now to bring on the design build team. The process that was identified in those documents and that was proposed on, the treatment processes constitute a suite of treatment processes that DDW would permit for potable reuse. So the feasibility on both of those 2 fronts is there. Essentially, the city could start injecting and could start extracting that water as soon as the facility is up and operational, which would be towards the beginning of 2022.
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay. All right. With that, we'll conclude public comment and move on to the next item on consent. And consent, we have one speaker slip for consent. Marla Josadowski.
Good evening, Marla Josadowski, North Morro Bay, and I would like you to pull, let's see, where is it? Your consent item about Linda Steggy's Brown Act violation. I don't know what the number is here. A5?
I'm sorry? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry?
Who's talking to me?
John, that's John.
I'm sorry?
That's John's heading.
Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Oh, hi,
Go ahead.
John. Hi, John. This is Marla Joe, and I'm asking to pull A5, the Linda Steggy Brown Act violation, receive and file the city's response to her. I will address Mr. Pannoni at another time, his comments. I don't agree, and obviously you know that because I've filed a Brown Act cease and desist letter with you myself.
Right.
Right, okay. That's weird.
I know it is. Please continue.
So anyway, what I noticed is that on on my Brown Act violation, I didn't notice it at the time, but I did notice it later that you had received and filed your response to my Brown Act letter in the city agenda. I don't know where it's held, but what I would ask is that if you are going to do that, that you include the complaint letter that was given to you, because you're not giving a whole story to the public if you just give your response, and I think that's would be fair. I don't know the legality of you posting someone else's letter, quasi-legal document in the city agenda. But I suppose it's okay since you're doing it with your letters. And so I would ask that if you do that, that you include the complaint letter as well as your response letter. And I'd like to tell the public, to take the public, some of these Brown Act violations are only misdemeanors and $100 fines. If a member of the public were going to litigate a case against the city for the Brown Act violation, they would be responsible for their attorney's fees and court fees. The city would have to pay fees. If you lose, you have to pay either way. The city has to pay or the person has to pay if they lose. Anyway, there's a lot of money involved in this. The point that I'm trying to make is that most communities know that people don't want to spend the money to fight, and I'd like you to correct your behavior.
Okay, we have one more public comment speaker slip. Steve Stevens for consent.
Thank you, Steve Stevens again. First of all, I wanted to thank the council, specifically Marlis, but the whole council for being much more attentive this time in terms of answers. I think everybody really does appreciate that, and I think it has to do with trust and transparency, and it's very, very important not to just come up and have our 2-3 minutes or whatever, but there are issues that are of a concern, so it's very, very much appreciated. I just wanted to say that. And just as far as the A5 was concerned, my primary confusion is just that this has been on the agenda previously, and so I'm just a little confused in terms of I don't know if it can be clarified. I don't know what type of considerations that the council has, relative to answering this in public. But I do think it's important since it's been brought up more than once. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment speakers for consent, and we'll close public comment and bring it back to council. And any items to pull for consent?
Well, I'll pull A5.
A5. Anything from anybody? Matt? Red? None? Okay, I take a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda with the exception of item A5.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Davis, second by Ms. McPherson. Any discussion? None? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 4-0. Councilmember Heading, was he tapped in on that? Okay, all right. He will be for item C1. Okay.
Technically, it's 401.
Excuse me,
401. because there's one abstention.
I'm sorry?
The vote was 401 because Councilman Heading
is not present.
Right.
Okay, all right,
And
thank
that
you.
didn't vote.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, I would like Mr. Pannoni to explain item A5, which does look familiar because it's almost identical to a prior letter that we received. So if you would just give the background, and I would note that the letter from Ms. Stege is included in the packet, and as is the city's response, and that is common practice. So we do always include the letter of complaint as well as the city's response. But if you could just give us the background, Mr. Pannoni.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Stege filed a complaint or concern that she had regarding the Brown Act and that an issue with the way that the city council had her allegedly saying that the council had made a decision X and then changed decision X to decision Y without any public notice. That complaint letter was discussed with the council in closed session. A draft letter was proposed as a response to that letter, and the council, after the council in that closed session, agreed that was the appropriate letter that should go out. After that letter was approved, it was reported out that it was approved, and then it was put on a public agenda. Subsequent, when Ms. Stege received that response, she submitted another response stating that maybe she wasn't clear enough in her first letter, and so she changed a few words in that first letter and submitted another complaint about the Brown Act. And this thing that's on, the item that's on the agenda tonight is A5, is the council's response to that letter, which is basically the new letter is not much different than the old letter, and therefore the determination the council made is that it still doesn't show any violation of the Brown Act.
Thank you.
Joe, is there any legal requirement to put these items on consent?
Absolutely not.
So we received a letter with allegations of Brown Act violations, and so why would we have a closed session to discuss that?
Because of potential litigation.
Okay, and so we made a determination, closed session, and basically reported out and put everything on consent, including the complaint and the letter.
Again, it shows how you do more than what the Brown Act requires by placing those things on the agenda. And the reason you do that is because you want to make sure the public knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else?
No.
I'll take a motion to approve item A5.
I move we approve item A5.
Second.
Motion by Ms. McPherson, second by Mr. Davis. Any further discussion? None? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 401. Got it this time. All right. And if we could just take a 5-minute recess before we get started, that'll give staff a little bit of time to get organized on the next item, and then we'll get started with, let's say, in 7:45. Thanks.